Aquilo. Season 8. Chapter 6. A Boy Named Charity. What are patience and charity? The most descriptive way to define them would be alien. Both have shown up seemingly out of nowhere as neatly packaged human mysteries. Patience can usually be found in the dead of night at Aquilo Border Park, sitting on a bench, looking like he's waiting on someone or something that will never come. He's inquisitive yet placid, willing to help but without revealing too much. I want to demand more of him, but where I hope to pierce the surface of a pond, I find myself bouncing off a mirror. His nature allows him to weather questions unperturbed by insistence. My restlessness at his silence washes over him like so much water off a duck's back. Yet I never get the impression that he doesn't care, only that my curiosity is a passing thing. He answers what he deems important and lets ephemeral questions wear themselves out. If patience is so capable of tolerating the world without getting upset or annoyed, then what am I to expect from a boy named Charity? There's no question that this is what he meant by his kind. There is something to the aura both exude that is unmistakable. I'd never lay claim to being particularly sensitive to these things, but there's a supernatural quality to Charity that I've only ever encountered in Aquilo Border Park. I'm sure anyone who might have met both Charity and Patience would say the same. And now, one of these entities has offered to escort me back home. Sure, I say, starting to walk down the corridor back towards the exit. Maybe you can explain a few things while we walk. I came to Anthony Gillard Memorial Arena to meet with like-minded occult enthusiasts. I was looking forward to answers and perhaps fresh allies. Not only did I not expect to be turned around and dismissed, but I didn't think I'd walk away with a fresh anomaly to consider. Whatever I can help with, Charity answers, matching my pace. I'll do my best to answer. What are you feels too impolite. There must be a more acceptable way to get to the nature of a person. By considering who and what I've already met in Aquilo, it's not something so strange to question. I've so far only run across women who practice their own little version of witchcraft. What if Charity and Patience are our male counterparts? What if they come by their magic in less artistic ways? But I already know that that's not the case. The answer's at the back of my mind, already cooking. I just don't dare take it out of the oven. You remind me of my friend Patience. Do you know each other? Charity smiles, perfect teeth in a perfect mouth, and looks away, searching the fluorescent lights for an answer. Patience? I'm sure I've met a Patience before. We walk out of the arena and into the Aquilo evening. The moon is on the horizon, competing with the setting sun. It's been months, and I still cannot get used to the absence of clouds above the village. How do you know the name Dufour? There are ways to avoid giving a straight answer to that. Doris was the closest thing to a celebrity before her death, and my taking of her seat has brought much attention to me over the years. Even stripped of my inherited notoriety, my chocolatine alone are cause for stardom. Charity puts his hands in his pockets and breathes in deep. The arena parking lot smells of asphalt and used tires, but my companion seems to savor it with no less vigor than I would the smell of a simmering bolognese. I have a fraught relationship with your family, he says, without animosity. And I was close friends with your great-grandaunt, in a way. I've been hearing a lot of that lately. It's true. Then again, this is Aquilo. All our histories are intertwined. Some less than others. But as Helen Edna, Notary Public, once made a point of saying, we're all touched by the weird things here. But Helen never mentioned a Charity or a Phyllis Baker, nor did Olivia Figg. Besides, this boy can't be much older than I am, if he is at all. How close could he have really been with Doris? So, I continue, keeping my doubts to myself. Why did they kick you out of their meeting? What is it about your kind that upsets the Aquilo Occult Enthusiasts Club? You give off some rather supernatural vibes yourself. I thought they'd be thrilled to have you along. The accusation of a supernatural nature earns me a raised eyebrow and a crooked smile. You know of the door in the woods, he says, wasting no time on prevarications. You know of the demons that wander the streets and alleys in this town. They run through that threshold like dogs escaping to the backyard, craving the sun, the grass, and the freedom. They're hungry for things they can't find otherwise. I am all too familiar with those he speaks of. The hunger demon was my first foe upon arriving in Aquilo, and I've met my share of the wrath demons that appear as hellhounds. I've also met creatures from the portal that, while meeting the criteria for demons, turned out to be far more gentle of nature. I still get the occasional postcard from sweet Agnes, though she won't reveal her whereabouts. To compare them to dogs thirsting for a drop of release, though derogatory, isn't far from the truth. Agnes described where she came from as an inferno, where she and others like her burned with the desires of their nature but were incapable of filling that need. The hunger demon, a manifestation of gluttony without stomach or intestines. Hellhounds, forever consumed by incandescent rage. As far as I know, Patience still holds an envy demon captive, a worm that can only want for more of whatever it lacks. Is that what you are? I ask, looking Charity up and down to get a fresh measure of the man. Another incubus, maybe. Flattering, he smiles. But I just meant that there are such creatures at the meeting. One is a good friend of mine. Can't be that good a friend if he doesn't want you in his little club. Charity shrugs, hands still deep within his pockets. Like Patience, he seems to have not a care in the world. We arrive in front of the Aquilo, and I can see Stefan through the windows, leaning on the counter, reading a book. Afternoon tea is dragging to its end, and everyone who partook looks satisfied. It's a shame I didn't stay to soak in the inevitable compliments over the food. Well, he doesn't know we're friends yet, but he'll come around to it. Stefan gives us a glance through the window, but doesn't seem to make anything of me and my new companion. It's a singular relief that I can expect no gossip from him on the subject, though I know he'll have his own questions tomorrow. You know I have to go back, right? I ask, taking a step up to my apartment. I've a friend upstairs who can help. I'll get her, and we can go back. Charity tilts his head and frowns without damaging his smile. Looking down at him from even a couple inches away makes him look tiny. Whatever for? You told me these people are locked in a room with a demon. I have to go help them. Ah, he shrugs. That's up to you, Miriam Dufour, but your friends are in no immediate danger. Besides, what do you expect to do? Your foes are greed and pride. You come from a formidable lineage and have a reputation to match, but unless I'm mistaken, you lack the weapons to confront them alone. He speaks of pride, then lobs a compliment at me like a test. I can feel the swell of it in my chest as I'm put on the level with Doris and her predecessors. Formidable, like he chose that word on purpose. I've defeated both pride and greed before, I boast, quick to notice the subtle infection, but powerless to stop it. I can do it again. His head sinks between his shoulders and he looks around shyly, as if he had something to tell me but couldn't find the words. Suddenly, I don't feel so big anymore. I thought I'd mastered the subtle art of humility, but obviously there's still something of the infection in my veins. What did it, I wonder? Was it proximity to the demon tonight? Or am I only self-conscious because of Charity's presence? You are so very strong, Miriam Dufour, he says, putting a comforting hand over mine on the railing. Of the pillars of Aquilo, you are fast becoming the most robust, but... He lifts my arm, sliding a finger to my wrist and pressing down. I can feel my heartbeat ticking up my shoulder. It's fast and nervous and feels almost irregular. It's a subtle reminder that I'm over 40 hours without a wink of sleep. Toss in the stress of having a house guest, fresh mysteries to solve, and now this strange young man holding my arm. Clearly, my thoughts are out of focus. Fine, I say, pulling my arm away a little too fast. You're right, Charity, if that is your real name. I'll get some sleep, but I'm not turning a blind eye to this, and I expect you to answer a few more questions before I come up with a plan. I expect nothing less of you, Miriam Dufour. He smiles again, his hands returning to his pockets. I'll drop by tomorrow morning. We can start our own occult enthusiast club. With that, he turns to continue down Rue Principale. I watch him slowly disappear into the dying day before realizing that I'm holding the wrist he touched with my other hand. My heartbeat still feels a little quick. Climbing up the stairs, I ponder demons of gluttony, lust, wrath, envy, pride, and greed. I know cardinal sins when I see them. And I know cardinal virtues just as well. I swear, this time, I'm going to sleep. It will be brief sleep, and it will be restless, but damn it, I will shut these eyes of mine and slow my breathing for a few hours. Maybe I'll even dream or allow myself the luxury of a little snore. I don't even care if I make it to bed or not. I could fall asleep walking down the corridor to the washroom like some narcoleptic caricature, and I'd be fine with it. Anything to recharge those batteries so I can confront the deluge of oddity that only Aquila is capable of providing. Alas, it's not to pass. The hour is so late that I don't dare call out to see if Ophelia is awake, or even still in my apartment. If she did decide to go her own way, then she didn't have Gulliver pick her up. I'm pretty sure I would have noticed an enormous truck park itself in front of the cafe. Like in the good old days. Closing the apartment door behind me, I'm left with nothing but an eerie silence. Without the quiet hum of the village and the soft whisper of the wind, my home is plunged into an auditory void. Unless I take a step, setting the floorboard to creak, or I turn on a light to hear the quiet buzzing of incandescent bulbs above, it will remain this way. Except it isn't completely quiet, and not all lights are off. There's a brief rustling of fabric on fabric, the subtle song of someone resettling themselves, and the distant glow of a single light in my dining room at the end of the long corridor. No claws on the hardwood floors or kitchen tiles, no digging through the garbage or pantry. With raccoons ruled out, that leaves only Ophelia. Probably sleeping, I think to myself, carefully tiptoeing my way down the hall. Thinking back to some of the things this woman has put me through, I get a slight chill in my spine. We keep doing this dance, she and I. Common ground is found one day, only to become a battleground the next. Why is she staying here? Why am I letting her? I turn the corner into the room that doubles as dining and living room. The portion nearest the kitchen has a table with 4 chairs, with 2 extras in the corners, and a dish cabinet full of beautiful ceramics Doris left behind. The area near the far wall has a small couch and matching armchair, with a modest television hung opposite. My addition, though I barely ever watch it. Ophelia should be sleeping on the couch, wrapped in a comforter with her cat slumbering at her side. At least, that's how I imagine I'll find her. Instead, the couch is empty but for the orange lump of her cat. The light from the kitchen, the single bulb above the sink, stands alone against the darkness. On the floor, between the couch and television, in the spot where I've been meaning to put a coffee table for a year, there's Ophelia. Not the powerful young witch of yarn, needles, and wool. This isn't the steadfast artist and occultist that I want to rely on for the coming trials of finding her mother's body. This is a wreck. She sits, cross-legged, wearing the same clothes she did last night. Her back is curved like a willow over the surface of a lake, her hair hanging like branches around her face. The shawl on her shoulders looks more like cobwebs, and her frail fingers clutch between them the skull of my great-grandaunt. Strewn around her are a collection of items that seem random at first, but connect between themselves upon closer inspection, the same way they connect Ophelia to Aquilo. I sigh, as much out of grief for the sleep once again snatched from my grasp as it is to announce my presence, but I get no reaction. Laboriously, and with an involuntary grunt, I lower myself to sit opposite my guest. She's gone through my apartment, ransacking souvenirs here and there. The portrait of Doris she seems so interested in is in front of her, along with a clumsily knit multicolored scarf that curves to one side, incomplete. There's a crochet green raccoon, a gift from Nisha to me. Plenty of other knitting supplies complete the strange nest Ophelia has built for herself, including a little red plastic truck that I'm sure represents Gulliver, next to a wolf's fang that means nothing to me. Gentle, as to not startle her if she is somehow sleeping, I pick up the photo to look at again. Holding the frame up, I compare the two girls before me, the child grinning over a slice of key lime pie and the one weeping over a skull. They're the same, of course, removed by a decade and a half, but the same girl. The same thin fingers that today wrap around bones are holding a plastic fork in the photo. She even then wore the same familiar French braid that I've seen on her so often. Not that this is the only photo of Doris with children. My great-grandaunt baked cakes and cookies. Of course the kids flock to her like they would an ice cream truck. I see the same at the Aquilo Cafe all the time. Students flooding back from school after class or the arena after practice. Some have even become friends. And that's why I never noticed, I suppose. There's a pang of jealousy as I realize that even Ophelia has had a chance to meet Doris in the flesh before I had even heard of her. Gary Remington's 40th birthday, Ophelia whispers, her head still low, her voice flat. Days before everything fell apart. Careful not to disturb this rare moment of peace, I set the frame down on the floor, as close to where it was when I picked it up. I never asked you what happened. I try to coax the story out, applying as little pressure as possible, like checking if an avocado is ripe without bruising it. I'd have told you off if you did. She raises her head to look in my eyes, twisting the skull in her hands so that it faces me. The tip of her right index finger traces the sigil etched into the bone. I was 6 when my mother died, she continues. One day we're at a party at the Pickering farm. The next I'm sent home with my grandma because Mom has some things to attend to. 2 weeks later, I'm back in Aquilo for a closed casket funeral. But I'm a very curious and stupid girl, so... Holding onto the skull with her right hand, she leans over to lift the edge of the photo as if she were trying to see something hidden underneath. I took a peek, she adds, letting the frame fall back into place. Then I screamed, and I ran, and I cried. I missed them lowering my mother into the ground because I couldn't believe it was her. The head was missing, and her skin was all burnt with these weird symbols I couldn't understand. She taps the forehead on Doris's skull for emphasis. Grams took me back the next year so I could see her grave, Ophelia chuckles. I thought Aquilo was the ugliest place in the world. We were here for a day, and I hated every second. The whole time I was in town, I just wanted to burn the village to the ground, which is a little harsh for a 7-year-old kid. The whole thing sounds harsh, I say, picking up the green raccoon. I remember that memento as a gift from Nisha after she learned to crochet from Ophelia. She was so very proud to have made it. Did you stop by the cafe while you were there? I feel like I know the answer already. Grams did. Ophelia takes the raccoon from my hand, not to deny me, but just so she can straighten its ears and reshape its tail. I waited in the car. I preferred to stay in an old Pontiac that smelled of cigarettes and burnt plastic rather than go into the Aquilo Cafe again. Grams got me a chocolate croissant and a chocolate milk for the trip home, but I didn't even touch them. She puts the raccoon back in my hands before going on. We didn't speak of Aquilo or my mom for years after that, but I never stopped thinking about it, thinking about this wretched town and what it took from me. Sitting here, listening to her sad story, I feel myself almost falling asleep. The soft light is too soothing and the calm so welcoming. I'd curl up on the floor if I wasn't so curious. Is that why you hate Doris so much? Because your mom died in Aquilo and she should have done something to protect her? Everyone in Aquilo turned to Doris for all their witchy needs. If something terrible happened to Diane Sarajo, then it would have fallen to Doris to stop it. At least, that's how I assume a child might interpret events. No, Ophelia says, picking up the amateurish scarf that lies beside her. I was pissed at the village, obviously. I left my mom there, and the next thing I know, she's gone. So yeah, I had unreasonable amounts of resentment towards Aquilo, but I only started putting the blame on Doris a few years ago. Graham's was 78, and they diagnosed her with super aggressive liver cancer. She went from teaching art school to being bedridden like that. She snaps her fingers, a loud, sharp sound that takes me by surprise. Within a month, she was gone, she continues. Seeing the person who raised me on her deathbed, with everything I learned from her, it had forced me to confront that I never knew what happened to Mom. She said it was a Dufour who did it, which didn't leave too many options. I'd seen the sigils on Mom's body, the missing head. Doris was already ancient and had no children. It had to be her. I reach out to take the skull from Ophelia's hands. She offers a little resistance, something in her not ready to relinquish the prize quite yet. Tracing the symbol with my finger, I wonder once again what it could mean and what power it might hold. But it wasn't Doris, I say. Have you ever grilled kebabs? There's a dozen methods of stabbing the meats before you put them over the flame, and none of them are really that safe. There's always a chance you'll put a metal rod right through the palm of your hand or cut your arm on the sharp tip. Regardless of mild risk, there's something satisfying to shoving a skewer through some meat and veggies. Must be a primal instinct from the ancestral memory of hunting. Sure, you bought those beef cubes at the grocery store, but the preparation still conjures something visceral. Now, think of it from the point of view of the meat. Having that cold metal or wooden skewer impaled from one side of you to the other. While the pain would be terrible. Trust me, I know. I think it's the helplessness, the inevitability of the situation that would be the most unsettling. That's exactly how I feel when my alarm goes off at 5:30. Like I'm being stabbed from ear to ear, faced with the inevitability of a brand new day. What sleep I did get was of poor quality, and as I lift myself from bed, I feel like I'm being dragged to the grill. Even the shower feels too hot, burning my skin instead of washing away the exhaustion. The day is going to be brutal and, with my luck, full of adventure and mystery. Once at the top of the stairs that lead down to the streets, I contemplate letting myself roll all the way to the sidewalk. The pain would wake me, and it would be less effort than actually walking down. But then I'd be all bruised and scratched up. Maybe I'd break a bone or two or get a concussion. For the second day in a row, I go about the business of opening up for my customers. Mostly, I do okay. But I almost put a tray of ice cubes in the oven instead of the croissants I prepared the previous day. To make matters worse, this is a Monday, which is not a forgiving day of the week. People don't simply want their coffee, they need it. Everyone walking in at 6 a.m. for their stimulant of choice is here by necessity. This is no luxury I provide, but an essential service. At some point, it becomes very tempting to drink directly from the coffee pot. The scalding liquid would be just the jolt I need to keep me alert for 10, maybe 15 minutes. Come on, you old bastard, I mumble to the coffee machine. Don't have it in your heart to burn me today? Taking pity or having a cruel laugh at my predicament? The brass beast gurgles a reply, then dribbles a few final drops into the cup I'm making for Michael. Moments of the morning have blurred together in a salad of nonsense memories by the time Annabelle waltzes into the cafe. She's changed her hair back to electric blue, and she's carrying a small paper bag in one hand and her usual messenger bag over her shoulder. Oh, how jubilant and rested she looks, the Jekyll to my Hyde. "Hello, hello," she chirps, taking a seat at the counter. It's tempting to deny her coffee. "Oh, man. Did you not get to bed last night? Let me guess. You went back to the cemetery to investigate? Wait, no. You and Ophelia had it out about who's to blame for what happened. Or, and I bet this is the one, you tried to bake your problems away until the wee hours of the morning." "None of the above," I sighed, dragging a mug out from under the counter. "I got rejected from a magic club, met a guy named Charity, and got the full story of why Ophelia." "Why Ophelia what?" "Why Ophelia everything. What about you? I'm guessing by your disgustingly peppy mood that your prank worked wonders?" The theory, once voiced, saps a good portion of the joy out of Annabelle. She looks over her shoulder at the table the mayors habitually use, though they won't be around before lunch on a Monday. Turning back, she looks frustrated at what she saw. "Nah," she says, annoyed. "Not a peep. I thought she might be angry, but she must be livid if she's ignoring me like that." "Well, she knows you well enough to realize that the best way to get back at you is to deny you the satisfaction." Really? Now?" I smack the coffee machine with my palm as it refuses to dispense anything but boiling water. Only then do I realize I haven't replaced the coffee grounds. "Not sure she knows me that well," Annabelle laments. "I'm just her only daughter, nothing important. But never mind that. I've got great news." She puts the paper bag on the counter in front of her with a grin that screams triumph. "Well, good news," she continues. "Or maybe just news. Anyway, I went to the market like you asked." "Nice." I grunt as I use the manual coffee grinder to get a fresh pound of Colombian roast ready. The smell alone gives me a little jolt that's much welcome. "Find anything about those apricots?" "Nope, not a thing. It's Monday, so no one was there. The only stall that was open was Cedric trying to sell his barbecue sauce that no one wants." "And watercolors?" "And watercolors." She puts her hand inside the paper bag and pulls out a small bottle, no taller than a soda can. Big red lettering on mustard yellow background boasts the promising words, Caliente XX. "Which one is that again?" I ask, picking up the bottle from the counter. "The one that's too sweet or the one that's too spicy?" "It's the one that tastes like plums," she confirms, taking the bottle from my hands. "Though there isn't a single plum in the recipe." I smile. "Why did you bother buying this?" Annabelle looks around again, almost as if she's worried Cedric himself might be lurking in my dining room and over here. "It was just the two of us there. A dozen empty stalls, me and him. It got real awkward. I figured you're the magic cook. Maybe you can do something with it." No one's that good at cooking or magic. She unscrews the tiny plastic cap from the bottle and gives the thick crimson concoction a careful smell. The way she pulls away from the bottle, tears immediately welling up in her eyes, and her face contorted into a disgusting grimace, tells me everything I need to know. "You should have gotten a watercolor," I chuckle. Leave it to Annabelle to restore my good mood with bad news. We keep joking around like this for a little while, commenting on Cedric's paintings with gentler words than we do his sauces. I get my friend her coffee at last, and somehow I'm possessed of a second wind. I doubt I could somehow pull an all-nighter again, but at the very least, I think I can make it through the day. Around 10 in the morning, a refreshed and almost jovial Ophelia joins us. I offer her kind greetings and a chai latte. It's very weird not to have that passive-aggressive glaze over our conversation. If I had to compare this feeling to anything, I would call it satiety. No longer do I hunger for her to hurt, and not only because I know she already does. "And you're sure this Baker woman is responsible?" Ophelia asks, stirring a spoon in her half-empty latte. She's sitting in freshly cleaned clothes, her habitual shawl lowered to her elbows, looking less defensive as a result. I'm sure we still have plenty to work out between us, like her relationship with Gulliver and my attempts to ruin her, but for once it feels like perhaps we can address these constructively. William, her cat, is far less passive. I'm no stranger to messing up recipes, I admit, but that was a whole new realm of errors. I can vouch for my process, my intent, and almost all of my ingredients save one: apricots. And I'm not saying Ms. Baker had any ill intent, but maybe she gets her fruit from a less than reputable source. Who knows what got imprinted into those apricots as they made their way to my kitchen? The cat growls, his ears going flat on his head and the hair on his back standing on end. He doesn't move from his owner's lap, but there's obviously something bothering him.
"What's up with your little guy?"
Annabelle asks, moving her hand in to pet the animal, but being quickly denied by Ophelia. Nothing. He just doesn't like Mondays. My own instinct is to check the back door and make sure no raccoon has made its way into the kitchen or dining room. I can handle them being indiscreet outside of opening hours, but if they roam around while customers are eating, that's a different, potentially business-closing story. The door looks secure and there appear to be no intruders at a quick glance. Hopefully, they're not being sneaky and creeping around unseen. When I turn back to my friends, however, there's a new face at the counter, one I expected, but not with that expression of distress and worry. Mayor Byrne? This is the time when normally the two mayors of Aquila would come to the cafe for lunch. They usually order some food, their coffee, and sit to eat and argue for 45 minutes. Good tippers and reliable clients, they get their own reserved table. That's the thing, though. They always come as a pair. One would think them attached at the hip or socially codependent. We all know that they're, for the most part, great colleagues, but it remains strange to see one of them alone. I crane my neck, trying to see if perhaps Veronique Lagacé is behind her homologue, but there's no one but Mayor Byrne at the register.
"Annabelle,"
she asks my friend, nerves barely suppressed, "have you seen your mother?" Aquilo is written by J.F. Dubow and narrated and produced by me, Amy Frost. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast platform. Want to support the show? Buy us a coffee. Go to ko-fi.com/Aquilo to donate. Aquilo has a Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Aquilo for details. Follow us on Facebook, Blue Sky, and Instagram under the username Aquilo.